How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. You can find me, as always, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Dalton_Trigg. You can find all of my Mavs-related work, written work, over at DallasBasketball.com. Have a lot of stuff up there right now, and we will continue to have it throughout the rest of this year. And speaking of that, I want to take a moment to tell everybody Happy New Year. Hope you all had a great holiday season, Christmas season, with your family and loved ones and everything. And I know we took a little over a week hiatus after the Mavs Suns Christmas game. It was much needed break, but we are back now. I will be joined by either my co-host Drew Johnson or our official correspondent Grant Afseth for the next pod we do. But for this one, just wanted to come on here and give a brief recap of what's been going on with the Mavs and just kind of the most recent thing here. And I guess we'll just jump right into it. I was gonna give a couple more notes, but the most recent thing we've got is the Mavs beating the Portland Trailblazers. They're now 3-0 against the Trailblazers this season. They play them again on Friday night, so they'll have a chance to go for the 4-0 season sweep of the Blazers. But it was Kyrie Irving's second game back from injury. He did okay in that first game back against Utah, but the entire team was off. They got walloped by 37 points to start out the new year against the Utah Jazz on the road. But now they're back home for a season-high 7-game homestand, and they started it out on a great note, beating the Blazers 126-97. Kyrie looked very much more like, co-star Kyrie in this game. He had 29 points. He was a plus 20 on the night. And he had 29 points in just 29 minutes, too. Shot 10 of 19 overall, 4 of 8 from 3. For the second consecutive game, he led the Mavs in rebounding, which is pretty incredible. He had 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. So Kyrie, and just 1 turnover, too. So Kyrie looks very much like he is healthy again, and he's back playing at a high level. And, hopefully he can continue that momentum into that fourth and final game against the Blazers that takes place on Friday. And Luka, he was just as incredible. He was actually more incredible than Kyrie was. He had 41 points in just 31 minutes. So the dynamic duo of Luka and Kyrie combined for 70 points in just 3 quarters. Neither one of them had to play in the fourth quarter of this one. But he had 41 points. Luka did, with 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and a steal. Shot 13 of 21 overall, 4 of 7 from 3, 11 of 14 from the free throw line. So, Luka did a good job attacking and getting to the line whenever he could. Josh Green, he had a nice game. He's also it's also his second game back from missing several weeks to an elbow sprain, and he only had 8 points in 27 minutes, but he shot 3 of 5 overall. He had 4 rebounds and assists, 2 steals, very active on defense. There were many times, and look, I know the Portland Trailblazers, they're not a good offensive team, but there were times where the Mavs defense was just so good that they weren't able to even get a shot off at some points. And even when they did, it was heavily contested. Sometimes they hit some, sometimes they didn't. But just overall, a great defensive effort from the Mavs. Now, as good as it was to see Luka and Kyrie go off the way they did against the Blazers, the Mavs didn't come out of this one unharmed, because in the third quarter, Dereck Lively, he sprained his ankle the last time the Mavs and the Trailblazers played. Well, he did it again in the third quarter, where he was rolling to the basket. Luka tried to hit Lively with a pass as he was rolling. The pass was a little low, and then Scoot Henderson ducked under Lively trying to go for the steal, and it resulted in Lively spraining his ankle. and he had to leave the game, and he did not return to the game. Now, Lively missed 4 or 5 games after that last ankle sprain he had, but after the game, Coach Jason Kidd said that it was a mild sprain. And the same goes for Grant Williams. Grant Williams, he only had 2 points and 2 rebounds in 15 minutes against the Blazers. But, he went down with an ankle injury late too and didn't return. So, but both of those guys, like I said, it's being called a mild sprain. We'll see if they play against the Blazers on Friday or not, because after that Blazers game, it gets a little bit tougher on the homestand because they'll play the Minnesota Timberwolves, then they'll play the Memphis Grizzlies, who have looked a lot better since getting Ja Morant back, and then they'll play the New York Knicks, who just traded for OG Anunoby from the Toronto Raptors. Jalen Brunson playing at an all-star level. Julius Randle's playing at an all-star level here lately. So playing a very good Knicks team. And then they finish off the homestand by playing the New Orleans Pelicans 2 times in a row. And there's been mixed results there. We saw in that mini series in New Orleans, they blew out the Pelicans the first game and then got blown out in the second game. So it's not, the Mavs are home for 7 games in a row, but it's not going to be an easy stretch here by any stretch of the imagination, because after this next Portland game, you just look at it: Minnesota, Memphis, New York, and then New Orleans 2 times in a row. The saving grace here, in my opinion, is that none of these are back-to-back, so they get an extra day in between every single game. They're not having to travel. That's the good thing about being on a long homestand. They get to kind of stay home and rest more instead of being on the road and, all the stuff that comes along with that. So we'll see how it goes. They have some extra motivation against Minnesota. They've kind of been punked twice when they played them. Didn't have Kyrie or Luka in the last game that they played against Minnesota. Memphis, they got punked when Luka had to miss that one game against them when his daughter was born, and it was just Kyrie playing in that one, and they got blown out by a Ja Morantless Memphis team. So should be some motivation there. Obviously, you have Jalen Brunson coming back to American Airlines Center for the New York Knicks game. The last time that happened was, last season when Luka had that 60-point, 20-rebound triple-double with all the drama that came down at the end of that game. So, the Mavs won it. The Mavs won both games against the Knicks last year, but the one at American Airlines Center was very stressful, even though it panned out for the Mavs at the end. So we'll see how it goes. Overall, the Mavs are in pretty good shape. They're 20-15 on the season. Not exactly where you'd hope they'd be, but there's only so much you can control with injuries. There's some of these games that, they should have won, like the Cleveland Cavaliers game following the Christmas Day game against the Suns. They played the Cavs on December 27th. That's the one I was at. And they were up big. They were up 20 points in the second half, and they just completely blew it. Choked. There's other words I could use to describe it, but I try to keep it. I try to keep it as clean as I can on this podcast. If younger people are are viewing or listening to it, but it was bad. That's all I can say is that second half against Cleveland. So. And then the Utah game too. Those are 2 games that I think you have to have, especially when you look toward the end of this season. That's games that you're going to look back and say, man, that really hurt. Because you look at the Cleveland game, they were missing their 3 best players, arguably in Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and they still couldn't win. Blew a 20-point lead and lost by 3. And then you have the Utah game where, that was very winnable with Kyrie coming back, but the whole team just wasn't engaged. So you could have been 22-13, but now you're 20-15. But it's okay. It's the NBA 82-game schedule. You got to wipe the board clean, take it as a 1-game approach, and it starts Friday in Portland against the Blazers, and the Mavs will be heavily favored in that one, just like they have been in these other matchups against Portland. So we will see how all that goes. Before I get into some other housekeeping stuff, including some trade talk, I want to tell you guys about the Sleeper app, which, if you've been listening to this podcast over the last few weeks, you've heard me talk a lot about it. But the Sleeper app, it's a daily fantasy sports app. If you think you know basketball, if you think you know NBA basketball specifically, that's what I use it for. But you go on the Sleeper app, download it to your phone. If you use our promo code STEPBACK, all one word, all capital letters, you can get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. So, for example, you get the app, you go in there, you say, okay, I want to take advantage and, deposit the max there that they'll match $100. Well, you'll have $200 in your account that you can use to, make different picks. And you can make 2 picks, you can make up to 5 picks, over unders on a lot of these different games that are going on. And I'm making 3 picks for tonight specifically. Okay, so there's 2 games on the slate for Thursday night. You've got the Milwaukee Bucks playing the San Antonio Spurs, and you've got the Denver Nuggets playing the Golden State Warriors. So for the Golden State Warriors and the Denver Nuggets game, rebounds, Nikola Jokic, 12.5. I'm taking the over. I don't think the Warriors have any. I don't think they have the horses in the stable at the big man position to keep Nikola Jokic from having a huge night against even though they have Steph Curry and they might be able to make it a game. The 3-point shooting will, it can always be the greatest equalizer. As far as the rebounds go, I think Jokic is going to feast on the boards, so to speak. So 12.5 rebounds, taking the over on Jokic. Now, we look at Victor Wembanyama against the Milwaukee Bucks and, playing against Giannis Antetokounmpo. His over-under for points is 19.5. Now, normally, I would take the under here because, I don't think I don't think his physicality is where it needs to be. His toughness is where it needs to be to put up a huge performance against an MVP, a finals MVP like Giannis. But the Bucks have not been great defensively this year. They give up a bunch of points compared to what they used to before the Damian Lillard trade. So with that in mind, I'm going to take the over on Victor Wembanyama points. Over his he averages 18.9 points per game for the season. So, and then at home, he averages nearly 20 points per game. So that's where I'm at with that. It's a nationally televised game. Both of these games tonight are on TNT. Take the over on Victor Wembanyama points. Now, for Steph Curry in that Nuggets Warriors game, for made threes for him is the over under is 4.5. I'm taking the under, but I think it'll be close. I think he'll be right at that 4 mark. I think the perimeter defense that Denver plays will be enough to bother him. I think he'll still get his volume up, but I'm thinking 4 is probably the limit for Steph. He's been on a tear lately. He could easily get the over there, but I think you probably have a little bit more value taking the under on that, given that they're facing the Nuggets and all those good lengthy perimeter defenders. So again, if you like daily fantasy sports, if you think you know basketball, get the Sleeper app and use our promo code STEPBACK to get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Okay, so if you didn't hear earlier in the week, again, it's been probably a week and a half since we did our last pod following that Christmas Day game, but Mavs trade stuff. Mark Stein came out and said, because there was a rumor, or a report rather, that the Mavs were going to be likely to pursue Toronto Raptors Pascal Siakam before the trade deadline. And our guy Mark Stein, if you don't sign up for his Substack, you definitely need to, because he has a bunch of great stuff that he posts there, and he'll send it directly to your email. You don't have to actually go to a website or app or anything like that. He'll email it to you. So, but anyway, on his Substack newsletter, he confirmed that yes, the Mavs have registered interest in Siakam, but he also hinted at, Siakam might not be at the top of the Mavs wish list for their upgraded starting four. It's known the Mavs are going to try and upgrade at the power forward position before the trade deadline is up. So got us thinking, okay, well, if Siakam isn't at the top of that wish list, then who is? Is it a player that's more talented than Siakam? Or is the wish list thing like, okay, a guy that is clearly an upgrade over what the Mavs have now, but is also more affordable based on what the asking price is from that player's incumbent team? Because we know Masai Ujiri, he's not wanting to sell his players cheap. Now, if you look at the OG Anunoby trade, I personally thought that, that was kind of cheap based on what the reports had been last year heading into this season. At one point, the rumors were, oh, well, the Raptors aren't going to trade OG Anunoby unless it's for at least 3 first-round picks plus, several young players. And then when it came down to it, he got traded. OG Anunoby and Precious Achiuwa got traded to the Knicks for RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and a second-round pick. So, I mean, that's, to me, based on what the hype was for OG's trade value, that's not nearly as much as what we thought. So, I look at Pascal Siakam, who is 29, going on 30 years old. He is an unrestricted free agent this upcoming summer, and he holds a lot of leverage. I mean, no team is going to trade valuable assets for Siakam unless he is willing to sign an extension. And so far, that's the thing that's kept him from being traded. He's not willing to sign an extension. So he holds a lot of power here. Could other teams beat out the Mavs offer for Siakam? Of course they could. Of course they could. But, I mean, it's all about where the player wants to go. Especially in his particular situation. Now, if he had 2 or 3 years left on his deal, this wouldn't be a topic. But since he doesn't, it is a topic. And the Mavs do have a legitimate chance to get Siakam, in my opinion. So we'll just have to see. What does Siakam want? Does he see a natural fit there, playing the 4 with Luka and Kyrie and Dereck Lively as the anchor at center? Or does he, want to go somewhere else? So I don't know. And then another interesting thing to me was that before that Cavaliers game last week that the Mavs played, Mark Cuban was asked about, selling his majority stake in the team to the Adelson family, and he was asked about luxury tax stuff and all that. And Cuban basically said that the Adelsons told him, don't worry about it. Just do your thing. The luxury tax doesn't matter. We just want to win. So that got me to thinking, okay, well, what if the Mavs wanted to, Golden State is not the team that we think they are, or they're not the team we thought they'd be coming into the season. They've taken a huge step back, in my opinion. Now, they're still scary because they have Steph. And when Steph is hitting threes, they're what's the word? They're a team you have to watch out for if he's on. But other than that, Klay Thompson is borderline washed. Those injuries that he had, they've been really hard for him to overcome and get back to where he was. Draymond Green, he's still good. Make no doubt about it. He might be he might make some boneheaded mistakes at times, but make no mistake about it, he is still a great defender, and he still, does stuff that is valuable to a team trying to take that next step and being a contender. He just has to stay on the court. That's the thing with Draymond. So I know people don't like Draymond, and I don't agree with the stuff he does on the court at times too. But, if the Mavs are wanting to upgrade at the 4 and they want somebody that's probably more affordable than what a Pascal Siakam is, or, somebody else like PJ Washington maybe, or something like that. Kyle Kuzma with the Washington Wizards. I'm looking at Golden State and I'm seeing how the ship is kind of starting to sink for them. And they're locked in for the next 3 seasons after this season with both Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins. And those are 2 players who could greatly help the Mavs out, for the rest of this season. That could elevate the Mavs into title contention, in my opinion. So I look at that. They're both making over 25 plus million a year for the next 3 seasons after this season. That's a lot of future salary for a Golden State team that is, looking like they're at the end of their road. So do they really want to pay those guys that much for the next 3 seasons after this one? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I'm just saying, since Mark Cuban has basically been given a blank checkbook and said, go do what you got to do to win, I look at that and I say, man, could the Mavs potentially, pull off a trade that gets them both Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins? And I know it's a delicate risk reward balance with Draymond specifically, but I really think he could benefit from a change of scenery. Things have run its course in Golden State. They've squeezed every little bit out of the orange, so to speak, and it's just time. I mean, right now he's getting counseling, and he's suspended indefinitely until he meets the requirements from the Warriors and the league based on his last incident where he appeared to punch, Yusuf Nurkic of the Suns. And then, earlier this season, he got suspended 5 games because he put Rudy Gobert in a chokehold. So I'm not saying it doesn't come without risk. I'm just saying he's the type of glue guy this team could use. And I think if we're just thinking about on the court fit with Draymond, if they can take that risk with, his off court or his on and off court stuff, I think it could work out for the Mavs in a big way if it does pay off. And I think it's a risk worth taking because, one, like I said, I think he could benefit from a change of scenery. 2, he admires Luka and Kyrie so much. I think they'd fit like a glove on the court together. And, he's Draymond takes on kind of like that Dorian Finney-Smith role. Where he directs the defense and he's vocal and he keeps everybody engaged, and he just does all the dirty work. He's also shooting a career high 42.9% from 3 this year so far. So I mean, obviously you don't expect that to keep up, but he'd be as open as ever if he's playing with Luka and Kyrie Irving. So maybe that could keep up. And look, Dereck Lively has taken on that role of being the defensive communicator and keeping guys connected and being vocal all the time on the defensive end. And Luke has taken a step forward in that department as well. But they're not a 4-time NBA champion, former defensive player of the year, guy doing that. So that's my thoughts on it. I've gotten a lot of pushback on this idea. I posted my article on DallasBasketball.com, shared it to Facebook and Twitter, and you can imagine the comments I've gotten about this idea. But I think the risk is worth the potential reward. You have to take some risks, especially in the Mavs situation where they don't have a lot of draft capital. They're not going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're never going to bottom out with a healthy Luka Doncic the way the Thunder have done for the last several years that have got them to this point now where they have so many young, high lottery level talents that are starting to develop, and now they're looking like a future super team. That's not the Mavs trajectory here. They can't take that path. That ship has sailed. So you have to start looking at other ways to get this current Mavs team to take a step to be a championship contender. And you got to take some risks to do that. So that's one of the ones I'm looking at. Would love Pascal Siakam. I don't know how much, Masai Ujiri. Uh, I don't know what his least amount he would take for Siakam is, but I'd like to think that the Mavs would have a better chance of getting, Siakam shipped to the West than the Raptors sending him to another Eastern Conference rival like they sent Anunoby to the Knicks. So, it is what it is. There's a lot of different scenarios, but just count me in on either one of those. Siakam on the Mavs, great. If they can't do that, can they get Draymond and Andrew Wiggins and kind of make a Warriors light kind of thing from when they won the championship a few years ago? Except you have Luka, Kyrie, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Dereck Lively. That's a pretty serviceable starting five there. That's a pretty potent starting five in my opinion. So I don't know. We'll see what they do. The trade deadline is on February 8th, so we have slightly over a month to go. Things are going to start picking up. It's going to get crazy with the rumors like it always does. We had Woj saying that he thinks it's going to be active even if it's not like stars being moved. There's going to be several role players being moved more than likely. So it's going to be exciting, and I'm glad to get it going because this is my time of year. This and free agency and all that stuff, I love it. I love it. So we'll talk more about that when I have my guy DJ on here. We like to really get into some of these trade ideas, and I've got some other ones that are kind of unconventional. It's probably some that nobody has actually thought of yet, a little bit out of the box, but I'm going to save that for its own specific pod next week when I have DJ back on here with me. So, guys, appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Have a great week. It's probably going to be, if I don't come back on here Saturday or Friday night or Saturday morning to recap that second Blazers game, I'll probably just wait for next week to come back on here and talk about those other trade options I was referring to with DJ. But I'm going to try and sneak in one more after this next Blazers game. We'll see how the weekend goes. But if I don't see you guys by the weekend, I hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week at the very latest. So, guys, appreciate it. Y'all be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Our goal last year, before the end of the year, and we had that goal in like August, we were hoping to eclipse 15,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. It eclipsed like 21,000 before New Year's, which was incredible. Can't thank you guys enough. We're going to keep the Mavs content rolling all throughout 2024 as well. And hopefully, with the Mavs missing the playoffs last year, hopefully they get back into the playoffs this year, and we're going to have Mavs step back playoff content like we did the season before last season when they went to the Western Conference Finals, because that was fun. We all had a great time with all that. So appreciate y'all so much. We're going to keep it rolling for you. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a bunch of likes, comments, all that good stuff. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review there and put your social media ad on it so you're entered for a chance to win future giveaways. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great one.